Hello. Today we're not going to talk about a video game. We're going to talk about a movie. And I'm going to ramble about The Lord of the Rings. Now, I guess before we get into anything, I should probably go through my history. So, what's my history with Lord of the Rings? Didn't see it when it came out in theaters. When was that? It was like 2002-ish. Actually, I have the DVD here. Let me check. 2001, The Fellowship of the Ring came out, and I think each movie after that was a year after. So, 2001 through 2003, those movies came out, and I was too much of a stupid baby to even pay attention to them. I was carrying about... I don't even know what I was caring about at that time. I was way too young. And then, gosh, it must have been a long time. Because the first time I remember, actually considering watching them was around... So when I was in high school. I got the Blu-ray extended edition set. Came with all the juicy bonus features and the extended edition versions. And it was expensive. It was like $70 or something. I guess that's not too much for a quote collector's editions, which this probably... I don't even know if you'd classify this as a collector's edition, but in that era, I was mostly spending, $15 on a Blu-ray. Spending 70 plus, it's a big ask. I guess, why did I want to get it? I can't remember. I guess it's just that thing where, if you kind of like film, you just kind of stumble across certain things. And Lord of the Rings, it's something... It was such a monumental event back when it came out, from what I understand. And even going forward, decades later, it's still this monumental project that still holds up. Well, still held up back in, oh gosh, when was this? 2014, 2013 maybe? So it was that thing where, just maybe talking with friends. I can't remember exactly, but I decided, you know what, now's the time. I'm gonna watch it. And I did watch it. The extended editions. And by God, these things sure are extended. What's the first one? It's 3 movies, in case you didn't know for some reason. I'm gonna go into spoilers, so... I guess that's up to you. First movie's well, the extended edition of the first movie is 3.5 hours? And that's only movie 1 of 3. Movie 2 is I think it's pushing 4 hours. And movie 3 is 4.5. 4 hours, 20 minutes or something. And I guess 20 minutes of that, 10, 20 minutes of that is credits. But still, 4-hour movie, that's a long time. And even today, I sit down and watch a movie. There's a certain amount of time where I'm okay, I gotta get up and stretch. And once I do that, I kind of start to drift out of my attention span starts to wander. But still, these movies are long. But, by God, 2013, 2014, 2015, whatever it was, I pushed through them, A little less than 12 hours, I made it. I watched them all. And I liked them. They were fun. I enjoyed my time watching it. I guess... something that's kind of... Is this a fault of the movie, or... I guess it's just a fact. It's not really a fault of the movie. It's just these are 3 movies, and they're all part of one experience. Of Frodo getting the ring and heading to Mount Doom to destroy it. That's established early on in the Fellowship of the Ring. And the next... 7, 8, 9 hours is dedicated to him doing that, going on that journey. And it kind of blends together. I'm trying to think... Before I watched these again recently, that's kind of what inspired me to do this video. But when thinking back, before, I was okay, where does the Fellowship of the Ring end? Where does the Two Towers start? Where does the Return of the King start? I didn't quite have that division in my mind of these as separate movies. it was kind of one experience. And of course, rewatching it I guess that was like 2 weeks ago I did that. I have that distinction in my mind where it's like, okay, Boromir's death is at the end of... Is that how it ends? Oh gosh, I guess I don't know for sure. But Boromir's death is towards the end of the Fellowship. Two Towers ends with Minas Tirith and Return of the King. Is that Minas Tirith? I'm not good with names. I think that might be Minas Tirith. I can't remember. Gosh, there's these fantasy movies, there's so many places and characters and so many names to remember. I'm so bad with this stuff. Helm's Deep. Helm's Deep. That's the one that Two Towers ends with, and Minas Tirith is Return of the King. Got it. So even now, after I watched it, admittedly, it was like 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, maybe. But, it's still a short time. And these are long movies, and they kind of blend together. So, before I had rewatched it recently, I kind of forgot a lot of the details. I remember the broad strokes where it's like... I remember the Two Towers starting, and Frodo and Sam are on a mountain. I think that's the start of... Oh my gosh. It's either the start of the Two Towers or Return of the King. I have such a bad memory. But I just remember them walking on a snowy mountain, or a rocky mountain, whatever. And there's just like little bits I remember. In the end of Return of the King, I definitely remember that. That's a memorable thing on top of Minas Tirith with everyone gathered together. And of course, a bunch of the stuff towards the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. Because, that's where you start out, and that's where your memories... It's where my memory's strongest. Remembered a lot of that stuff. But a lot of the details I forgot. This is... Hold on, let me think this out. Okay, so 3.5 hours. It probably does work out to about 12 hours. Minus credits and all that. But that's like 12 hours of like movie. And there's so many scenes I forgot. So many scenes. And once I see them, maybe I'll remember bits and parts, but I can say for certain, watching this through recently, it was pretty much like watching it for the first time. I knew kind of the same beats, but I guess the emotional impact was still there, and some of the revelations were still satisfying. So, time to talk about the movies themselves. I guess just to give kind of a format for how I'm going to do this, I'm going to talk about the 3 movies individually, then I'm going to talk about some random stuff around the movies, and then I'm going to talk about the package as a whole. So, The Fellowship of the Ring. This is obviously the one I remember the most from. It's such a... I guess just the intro is it's such a satisfying intro to a whole journey. I guess especially in the extended editions, they spend so much time in the Shire. And it's such a cozy little place. Just the visual effects and like the color grading makes it feel like so welcoming. I want to take a vacation here. I want to go to New Zealand and see where they filmed this. It's so whimsical. And they did a really good job of establishing that. Past the intro sequence with the, it shows the Isildur and his, like, loss of the ring, and Elrond and everybody. Past that, it gets you into the Shire, and you're just like, wow, a feeling of warmth envelops me. And it spends like, gosh, is it like an hour and a half? It must be like an hour at least in the Shire, just like setting things up. It's so weird to think about this, I guess, these movies in like a traditional 3-act structure. Because obviously in the format of, the hero's journey, you want to have a bit where you show off like the character's comfort zone. And you see that with Frodo. You see him hanging out with his friends. You see him partying at Bilbo's party. And they really establish that. They really establish the norm for Frodo. He's not an adventurer. Hobbits aren't adventurers. They don't go out. They like to hang out by themselves and eat and garden, and that's it. They don't want to leave the Shire if they don't have to. And you can see why. It's such a cool place to just... It seems like a cool place to live. And, they spend that first hour building up this comfort, this warmth around the Shire. And then little hints are dropped, little bits of like, hold on, trouble might be coming. Something's brewing out in the ether. This ring that Bilbo had, it's evil? And it's bringing ring wraiths to the Shire and they're gonna burn it down and all that? We gotta go now. And just that sense of like discovery for Frodo where, how does it start? Frodo sees Bilbo, Bilbo puts the ring on at the party, and Frodo kind of knows something's going on. And then Frodo heads back to the house, and that's where him and Gandalf kind of talk about the ring, and that's where this whole journey kind of... Or wait, no. Frodo gets the ring and he's told to keep it safe. Then Gandalf goes out, and he can see that Mordor is kind of bubbling about. And that's when he comes back and is like, Frodo, you gotta go now. I love that push. Where Frodo, he's like, okay, I put this thing away, I think it's gonna be safe. And then Gandalf just comes by one night, he's like, yo, is it secret? Is it safe? You gotta go. You gotta take this. Don't give it to me. No, don't tempt me. Yeah. And, you know, does he begrudgingly accept it? I'm trying to think. It's kind of the hero's journey thing, isn't it? To reject the call to action, but then, you know, begrudgingly accept it. He must have. I can't quite remember how it happens. But, you know, whatever reason, he and Samwise Gamgee, they head out into this... They're set out to Bree. And eventually they pick up Merry and Pippin. And once they get to Bree, that's kind of like the first... It puts the hobbits in this weird, like, uncomfortable space where there's normal-sized humans. You know, they kind of got used to Gandalf, but in Bree, in the Prancing Pony, just the way the filming is done with Elijah Wood and Sean Astin, you know, they're themselves, but then they have these, like, it's not CG, it's like mechanical legs walking around with, like, articulating hands. It's so funny just the way they did that from a filmmaking perspective. And it really establishes that these characters are hobbits. You know, hobbits are small. They're smaller than dwarfs. And, you know, you get to see that bit of discomfort where they're hanging out there and they don't feel welcome. They're kind of getting into trouble. And then, of course, you know, they come across Strider. That's where the adventure really kicks into high gear. So yeah, I don't want to do a beat-by-beat retelling of the movie, but just, I guess, the three movies themselves are kind of like a 3-act structure. That's the weird thing. The movies themselves are standalone. You know, they each have their 3 acts. But then the movies as a whole are 3 acts, so there's like 9 acts. And it's so interesting that, like, The Fellowship of the Ring is a complete movie. You know, it has this gut-wrenching climax. So does The Two Towers, and The Return of the King has this beautiful ending. And The Fellowship of the Ring, you know, both as a movie by itself and as a start to this journey for Frodo that will be expanded upon in the next 2 movies, it's a really good... It sets the stage really well. I'm trying to think if there's any other bits I want to talk about from that movie. Council with Elrond is really cool. That's where it's like fully established, where Frodo's like, I'm going to Mount Doom. And then, you know, you can have my sword and my axe and my bow. I think I did that out of order, but... And Elrond is like, I shall dub you the Fellowship of the Ring. And then they go. That was a cool scene. I've read that, like, I think I heard from, like, the bonus features that was a much longer scene in the book. Very curious to see what that's like. I'd like to read the book one day. I probably will sometime soon. Well, don't hold me to that. But yeah, that's the only other scene I can really think of that sticks out to me. Of course, Boromir's death. That's such a great moment. I guess it's kind of sad that I guess it gives stakes. You know, it's a great, like, ending to this movie, but it also gives stakes to the whole journey. And that, you know, not all the characters are safe. Boromir, he seems like a pretty important character early on. He has a lot to say at the council, so you think he'll be this like important character going forward. And he is, just kind of, even though he's gone in the later movies, he still plays a big part. It's sad to see him go, He's kind of tempted by the ring, but then he kind of turns good. It's good to see that development, and it's kind of sad to see, the part he plays later on. Okay. Is that it? Yeah, I guess at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, everyone splits up. And that leads into the Two Towers. Which really... Oh my gosh. Does Gandalf die in the Fellowship? Do they go into the Mines of Moria? Or is that Two Towers? Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think. Oh my gosh, I'm going to feel like an idiot. No, Boromir's at the Mines of Moria because he's carrying Frodo. That's another great scene. Oh my gosh, just the Balrog. The Balrog is such a cool creature. I especially love just the sound design whenever... I'm trying to think of the exact scene where, I think it's where Gandalf... It's where we first get a good shot of the Balrog. And he jumps up, and he lands, and he kind of does this scream at the camera. I love the sound design of, like, the audio's crackling. It's so crunchy. Oh my gosh. And that whole... I guess that further shows, there's stakes for this. Gandalf dies saving these characters, saving the Fellowship. And you really get to see them grieve afterwards. There's that bit of respite where they're all just kind of looking sad, and gosh, yeah, it's a gut-wrenching scene. Even seeing that after... I mean, I knew that happened. I remembered that from, my first watch. That's something you don't forget. And even seeing it again, it really hits you. Okay, I think that's it for the Fellowship. Now, leading into the Two Towers, as I was saying, the groups are kind of split up. Sam and Frodo were off on their way to Mount Doom. Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn, they're all off. What are they doing? They're going off to save Merry and Pippin, who got kidnapped by the orcs during the whole thing with Boromir. Where are the orcs? Was it the Uruk-hai that kidnapped him? Yeah. Yeah, because the riders of Rohan end up killing the orcs, but Merry and Pippin escape. Okay, yeah. So, it's kind of cool how there's like two separate adventures where Frodo and Sam, they're very much alone. They're together, and they're alone together, but they're still alone. It feels like, whenever you see them going, it feels like such a hopeless journey. And you really see that throughout this and even Return of the King. Towards the end of that movie, they are just disheveled. But in the Two Towers, when they split up, where Frodo decides to go away from Boromir and Aragorn and all them, it becomes a thing where you see the toll this journey is taking on him. In the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, he was such a happy guy, didn't have a care in the world, but now he carries this heavy burden. And the filmmaking, the script, the makeup, gosh, you can really see the toll this takes on him. And Sam as well. They are together, like I said, but they are fighting against all odds, going all the way to Mount Doom by themselves. Well, maybe not by themselves. This is the movie where Gollum is, like, introduced. I mean, he was shown a little bit in the Fellowship, but this is where Gollum is a character. What do I think about Gollum? Gollum's cool. I'm trying to think of, like, something substantial to say about Gollum. I guess it's cool that he's like this contrast of what Frodo could turn into. You really see towards the end of this where Frodo kind of starts to waver in like his sanity, and the ring kind of corrupts him. I can't quite remember. Is this towards Return of the King where Gollum kind of corrupts Frodo to distrust Sam? I think that's more in Return of the King, but even still towards that, Gollum is this character that represents the evil of the ring. And Frodo still has that good part of him where he knows it's his duty to go and destroy it. And Gollum, Sam distrusts Gollum almost immediately. But Frodo's like, no, we have to use him as our guide. And I feel like Frodo has to know that Gollum is gonna try and trick them. Because Sam is like the voice of reason. He's like, he's this little dude. He's gonna try and take the ring back. So he's talking about his precious. He's gonna take it. He's gonna betray us. I think Frodo knows that. Maybe he just lets his guard slip because of the ring, or... I don't know. Yeah, it's... The dynamic between Gollum and Sam and Frodo is such an interesting thing. I kind of thought it was weird that Frodo distrusted Sam almost so quickly. I don't know what that was like in the book. I guess it'd be weird to change that. If that's how it was in the Lord of the Rings book. Or I guess the Two Towers book. But that was just something I thought was weird. Like, why would Frodo trust this little goblin over Sam, the person he's known since however long? But, you know, his mind was... I guess Gollum did his bit to kind of make Sam seem evil. But I think that's Return of the King stuff. At least in the Two Towers, Gollum is... I guess he starts out as, you know, this kind of evil dude. And then, once Sam and Frodo kind of threaten to kill him, he basically is like, no, okay, I'll be your guide. And then you can kind of see in the shadows, he's like, I'm going to take it. I'm going to take that ring. And I'm going to wear it, and I'm going to be happy. Or, what does he want with the ring? I guess it's just good to have. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a more specific moment. I guess, well, to talk about the other part of the journey with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and Merry and Pippin. I don't remember a lot from their part of the journey in the Two Towers. What did they get up to? Okay, I guess this is the whole bit with the King of Rohan and his corruption. And that's where the snaky little king's assistant guy comes in. Yeah, I guess that's all I can remember is the bits with the Rohan and Boromir's dad and kind of the relationship with the son. That's what's really sad. I guess it was part of, you know, the corruption from... I can't remember the name. Sauron. I could not remember that name for a second. So that's kind of the corruption from that, you know, evilness. Yeah, I was sad to see the son whose name I can't remember. Not Eowyn, that's the girl. Yeah, there's so many names. There was Eowyn and Arwen. Those two names being really close to each other kind of got me confused. I can't remember the guy's name. Whatever. Yeah, that bit was kind of... I did like that now that I think about it. Two Towers. Yeah. This is good. It was a good movie. And Return of the King, this is the culmination of everything. This is where... You know, the first movie started out with... You know, here's everyone's comfort level. Here's where Frodo's happy. And then throughout the movie, it's like it pushes him out of that. He's like, no, you got to go on this journey. And then in the Two Towers, you start to see the toll that journey takes. You know, they're put through some bits of hardship. And then in Return of the King, they are pushed to their absolute limit. Characters have changed so much. I'm trying to think, like, has everybody changed? Yeah, everybody's had development. Aragorn, how has Aragorn changed? I guess Aragorn has kind of come to accept, like, his lineage. Boromir, Boromir died, he didn't change. He changed at the end of the Fellowship of the Ring. Gimli and Legolas kind of learned to accept each other and not be so racist. Merry and Pippin, they were like... Merry and Pippin are weird. They started out as like a pairing, where they were like together. But then, I don't remember when it was in the movies, in the timeline, but they got split up at some point. And they just kind of went on their own journey. And that was so cool to see. Gosh, if you told me to put Merry and Pippin, if you told me to put those names to faces, I couldn't tell you which is which. But it was cool to see them be by themselves and see how they reacted. You know, one of them was in Rohan. Where was the other one? Was one of them in Minas Tirith? Yeah, one of them was in Minas Tirith with Gandalf, and that's where they pledged fealty to the king. So, okay, yeah, so it was around then where they, towards the end of that, where they started to come together, and I guess they were still the same, it's not like they were completely unrecognizable to each other, but they had that bit of development by themselves, and that was cool. I guess all that's left is Sam and Frodo. I guess they changed in the way that they were the way they were in the Fellowship. And then towards the Two Towers and the end of the Two Towers, through the beginning of Return of the King, they started to slowly get corrupted by the ring, and it just brought them down so much, like to the pits, emotionally. And then towards the end, they pull through. They make the sacrifice, they go through all this trouble. And at the end, the ring is chucked into the fires of Mount Doom, along with Gollum, with his ring forevermore. There's a bit at the end of Return of the King that I really like. It's Frodo talking about when he's back in the Shire. He's talking about, I've went through so much. Can I truly return to life as it was? And that's such a powerful thing to think about. If you were to go on this journey, could you return to your normal life? Could you return to life in the Shire? Could you be happy doing all that? I don't know. I think it shows with Bilbo. He always felt that need for adventure after what happened in The Hobbit. You see that at the beginning of the Fellowship. Bilbo's talking about how he wants to go out again and see everything that he saw in his previous adventure from the Hobbit movies and the book. And at the end of this, Frodo's kind of like that, where he's like, I can't settle back down. I've changed. And Sam, it's Sam, Merry, and Pippin, they're content staying in the Shire. But Frodo, he's human through the most, and he feels like he can't return back to that normal life. And it's such a sad moment, where Frodo and Bilbo are getting on the elf boat to head off to God knows where. It's so sad seeing them all say goodbye. I forgot about that, watching this for the first time in a while. I forgot that Frodo just leaves. That's such a sad moment, but it's one of those happy endings where Frodo feels that's what's best for him, so he just sets off into the sea. I think the best moment from this movie, from the whole trilogy, I feel like a lot of people would agree with me on this. The moment that hit me the hardest was with Aragorn and Minas Tirith and the Four Hobbits, where Aragorn is crowned king, and the Four Hobbits bow to him. But he says something like, "My friends, you bow to no one," and everyone bows to these four hobbits. Gosh, just thinking about that gives me chills. That's such a great moment. Such like an emotional, it just hits you like a wrecking ball. Where, in the beginning of the Fellowship, it's established that hobbits aren't the type to go on adventures. They don't want to be the hero. They just want to hang out and do their own thing. But these four hobbits, they rose to the occasion. Yeah. Great ending to a great trilogy. So, I guess I kind of want to talk about the extended edition for a bit. Just like the concept of the fact that these movies have extended editions. Because nobody talks about the Lord of the Rings theatrical cut. Everyone's always like, oh, go watch the extended editions. It'll take you like 50 hours to finish it. I haven't seen the theatrical cut. So I don't know what the experience is like seeing that. And I should watch it someday. I should watch it just for perspective. Just so I can see what it was like, to see what additions the extended edition made. Because there were some bits, I was reading a Reddit thread about it, and I saw there were some people pointed out where some additions were kind of weird, like there was a bit with just like Gimli farting and burping. It's like, I don't need this. I thought that was weird. Oh yeah, it was him and Legolas having a drink off or whatever. Yeah, I guess it's cool character building, but he doesn't need to be farting and burping and ugh. Just weird. So there's some bits that feel that were deleted from the theatrical cut for a reason. But overall, you get the full package. I was watching the bonus features for The Fellowship, and they said that they added a lot of scenes with Aragorn, specifically about Aragorn, into the Fellowship. And I think those serve well, because Strider's this mysterious character in the Fellowship. And having a few more scenes where you get to just see what he's like. And, that's when, I guess you get to see him a little bit with Arwen, where Frodo gets carried off by her. It's good to just, have this emotional relationship with Strider. See a few more scenes with him. So yeah, the extended editions, it's crazy that these extended editions exist. I don't want to skip over the fact that these movies there's probably 12 hours of movie in this experience. And that's just crazy. That's crazy to me. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that and kind of loop back to it at the end. But for now, I want to talk about bonus features. This is such a big draw to the Lord of the Rings for me. It's kind of tied to the movie itself. The bonus features in the extended edition set. There are so many bonus features. I guess I just love the filmmaking process. I'm not necessarily interested in doing it myself. I like watching professionals work in this area. It's so cool just to see how efficient everybody is, and just see the actors, directors, editors, see everybody in their element. And there are so many bonus features for each of these movies. Each of these movies has 3 hours of bonus features or something. It's crazy. I've been watching... Let me look at my disc here. There's a little pamphlet that comes with each. In the extended edition set, you open the thing and there's 3 cases, one for each movie. And in each of those cases is a little map that kind of shows how everything's set up. So there's bonus feature sections for there's one for filming, here's one for visual effects, general post-production, digital grading, sound and music. And then there's a whole other disc about pre-production where it's okay, how do we translate this book into a movie? And there's all kinds of pre-production about the art and all that. Each movie has an insane amount of bonus features. It's so cool. The movie itself is amazing. Movies. It's hard to think about this as more than... It's not one movie, it's 3 movies. These 3 movies are amazing by themselves. And the fact that they documented the process of making them so heavily, that I can see just Elijah Wood and Sean Astin and... I can't remember, Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd, the 4 Hobbits, just seeing them goof off. There's this one scene that they kept reusing, this behind-the-scenes thing they filmed, where it's the 4 Hobbits doing this comedy sketch, where it'll be Billy and Dominic just sitting down talking to each other. They'll be oh, that Elijah Wood guy, he's kind of annoying. He's kind of a shithead. And then Elijah Wood comes and sits down. They're oh, hey, Elijah, what's up? You did a great job today. And then Billy will get up. He'll be oh, I have to go, I'll go to get the craft service table. Hold on a second. And then he gets up, and then Dominic and Elijah Wood start shit-talking him. And they just have this back and forth where they get up and they start shit-talking each other. And it's so funny that they brainstormed this comedy sketch behind the scenes of this movie. And you get to see it. That's so cute. That's so much fun. I love seeing stuff like that. So hey, if you've watched Lord of the Rings, but you haven't spent the time watching the bonus features, and you have any interest at all in the filmmaking process, go check that out. Oh my god, there's 4 director's commentaries? I really want to watch those. But gosh, I'd have to watch these movies 4 times over for each of those. That's crazy. I don't know if I could do that. That would take so long. All 3 movies, 4 director's commentaries. That would take forever. Oh my gosh. But that would be so fun. I just want to hear Peter Jackson talk about his experience making this. I want to hear what Elijah Wood has to say about everything. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've only made my way through the Fellowship bonus features yet. Just about finished with it. Then I'll probably go to the other 2 movies, and then maybe I'll watch the director's commentary. I don't know if I'll be interested around that time. Because, gosh, there's just so much... Like, I'm just in Lord of the Rings mode right now. I watch the movies, and, that takes, like, 3 days. Because I'm not watching the Fellowship of the Ring and the 2 Towers on the same day. That's crazy. That's like 8 hours dedicated to the movie. You wake up, you eat, you watch the movies, take a break to eat, you go to bed. I ain't doing that. Spread out across 3 days. So, yeah, and then once you're done with the movies, you get to watch all the bonus features. And then once you watch all the bonus features, you get to watch the director's commentary. Which means you're watching the movie over again, and then you watch it again with another commentary. And again and again. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's just... It's crazy that they... I feel so fortunate that they had the foresight to do all this for these movies. Because, any other movie, it would have been okay. But The Lord of the Rings deserves it. And it's so cool that they had the foresight to do all this beforehand, during the process of making the film. I'm glad that we have all this, that we get to see what life was like on the set back then. That we get to see what it was like for the hobbits, had to get up at 5 a.m. every day, and sit. Or no, they had to stand for like an hour as the makeup artist put the feet on. They had to put glue underneath the feet, and then they couldn't sit down because the ankles would angle in a weird way. So Sean Astin, Elijah Wood, all 4 of them had to stand up. Yeah, I'm glad that we got to see that. And, going through these bonus features, it makes me want to watch The Hobbit. If you're into The Lord of the Rings, I'm sure you know how much of a disappointment the Hobbit movies were. I'm sure they have their parts. They're good parts, but I went to the Hobbit Amazon page to see what the extended editions were like, just to see what kind of bonus features they had, or director's commentaries, whatever. And it said it has 28 hours of bonus features. I guess some of that is probably director's commentary, but by God, I just love the filmmaking process. Where, even if the 3rd Hobbit movie isn't that good, I still want to see what it was like to make it. I want to see what post-production was like. I want to see VFX artists talk about how they made the dragon. I'm thinking about it, man, but... Oh, man, I really don't want to watch those Hobbit movies, but I really, really want to see those bonus features. So, I guess I'll close out with just the whole package. Because The Lord of the Rings, like I said earlier, The Lord of the Rings is a great set of movies. Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, Return of the King, they're all great. But as an experience, you can think about the movies separately, but when you watch them all together, it's one journey. It is Frodo who gets the ring in the Fellowship of the Ring, and everything he goes out through the Two Towers, and how his journey ends in Return of the King. It's so satisfying. And part of that package to me is seeing how they made it. Just seeing the love and care that the filmmakers put into these movies. First of all, it shows on screen. You watch these movies and you're like, wow, Peter Jackson, he really cared when he was picking out, people like costume designers or makeup artists, second unit directors, just the people he picked to work on this movie, everybody cared. And you see that in the movie, you see that through the costumes and the shot composition and the background details. But in the bonus features, you get to hear them talk about it. You get to see Peter Jackson talk about how Christopher Lee, who plays Saruman, reads The Lord of the Rings every year. So he is a Lord of the Rings super fan, and he got to play Saruman. And it's so cool just to see him talk about just the process. So yeah, that's that. I love Lord of the Rings now, I'm still kind of in that hazy phase where I don't remember a lot of the details. I guess that's kind of just me when it comes to film, but I do want to rewatch these. I want to rewatch them with director's commentary especially, just to hear what everything's like and just to kind of solidify my understanding of this movie. Because I remember the broad strokes. I remember more of the broad strokes than I did from my first time watching. Like, before I watched these movies more recently, I watched only once back in 2015 or whatever. I didn't remember that, for example, Galadriel, whenever Frodo offers her the ring, she has this huge blow-up moment where she's like, "Do not tempt me!" She gets all scary and evil. I wouldn't have remembered that existed. Well, I didn't remember that existed. Now that I've seen it again, it kind of bolstered that memory for me. And I want to rewatch the movies again. And, kind of just solidify more scenes into my mind. Because every scene in this project feels like love and care was put into it. And you can see it on the screen. So yeah, that's that. Guess I'll call it for now. As always, leave a comment suggesting a topic for a future episode. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.